I can look at your child's face, just literally pictures of their face from the side, from the front, and tell you that child is not sleeping well at night. That child's mouth.
Would you call it an epidemic?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, upper respiratory infection, ear infection, tooth grinding, snoring. Are you mouth breathing? Does your child have dark circles under their eyes? Are they hyperactive? Are they a good learner? First thing we should be thinking is, how is that child's sleep?
That was Dr. Kalli Hale, a passionate airway dentist and founder of Toothpillow.
Say 80 to 90% of sleep disorder breathing is going undiagnosed because we don't recognize the signs.
Toothpillow is a telehealth platform for children designed by expert airway dentists and myofunctional therapists, improving breathing, sleep, and overall health.
Did you know that your kids' jaws are 90% developed by the time they're 12?
Information and knowledge is key. And when you know better, you want to do better for your child.
Are you ready to have your mind blown about the modern crisis that's destroying children's health right now? And barely anyone is talking about it.
How your child's face develops, really how their airway develops, or being quite frank, is going to determine the longevity in their life. Like, it's going to change how they age and how their body heals and illnesses that they can contract. I mean, this really is that big of a deal. The kids that graduate out of a Toothpillow might never see a retainer.
It's so amazing.
Here's all these baby food jars, and if you don't know,
This is why we need to solve this in the early years. So
100%. That's what I'm
with
saying.
This nonsense.
Oh my
Kind of feels like we're in a Black Mirror episode.
You're not thinking of soft food as a danger to your child's jaw development, and I'm here to tell you it is.
Wow. Welcome to the Ellen Fisher Podcast. Dr. Kalli Hale, thank you so much for coming on my podcast.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I drove you here to the studio, and that might have been a mistake because we've chatted too much on this podcast
much fun, though.
about this topic. And I'm like, wait, let's pretend that never happened. Back up, because I don't want to forget all the things we already discussed.
Absolutely.
In the car.
We'll go over it.
My first question to you is, as an expert in your field and all that you've seen and the work that you do, what is the biggest health concern that you're seeing in children right now?
It is a lack of oxygen at night, plain and simple. I want to make sure that as we go through everything that we're doing with sleep disorder breathing and Toothpillow and how we are changing these kids' lives, that parents have a take-home message that we have to be nasal breathers. And mouth breathing is the most dangerous form of breathing you can do. And I think just genuinely knowing that we have to get air in through our nose is the most important part of the majority of our discussion today.
What percentage of kids are nasal breathing right now?
It's way
society.
too low. I couldn't tell you an exact, but I would say 80 to 90% of sleep disorder breathing is going undiagnosed because we don't recognize the signs. I wasn't taught it in dental school, so I had to seek out a lot of education after to even know that a child's grinding or snoring was somehow abnormal, and missed it and gave a lot of misinformation early in my career.
So you feel, or what you're saying is 90% of kids are mouth breathing. Chronically mouth breathing? Is this like during the day mouth breathing, night breathing? Can you break it down for us? What are you seeing, and what statistically is happening in our kids today?
So the percentage exactly is much higher than what you would read in the stats. So knowing that 90% of it is actually misdiagnosed or undiagnosed, they're telling us that 25 to 30% of pediatric population has obstructive sleep apnea. And I would argue that it's much higher. And the mouth breathing that I'm the most concerned about is at nighttime. Now, if it's happening during the day and you're watching your child do simple tasks, playing, watching TV, whatever, and their mouth is open, you've already got a bigger problem. But at night especially, and if you could peek at your kids when they go to bed, you want to make sure that their lips are closed and they're breathing through their nose.
And why is this such a big deal? For people who are new to this, like, what is the big deal with having your mouth hang open or breathing through your mouth? Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, if you're a mouth breather, it's going to change the shape of your face. So very broadly, I can just say if your child is mouth breathing, they are not going to develop into the face and person that they would if they were not mouth breathing. And the basis for that is muscle drives bone growth. We talked a lot about muscles earlier. And when your tongue is up and you're breathing through your nose, there's pressure being applied to the roof of your mouth. And the roof of your mouth is the floor of your nose, very simply to explain it. So the narrower your jaws are, if your tongue is laying low because you're a mouth breather, the worse your nasal breathing is going to be. Your nose has really important function too. Your nose is a filter, and it humidifies and warms all the air that you're breathing in. And you don't get that function if you're breathing through your mouth. And the more you breathe through your mouth, the more your tonsils and adenoids could get swollen. And that's a huge topic. Do I get my child's tonsils out? All of this, I get messages about a lot. So ultimately, just understanding that Our nose is there for a reason. And the fact that you will actually get more oxygen to your brain when you breathe through your nose versus your mouth should also be a concern if your child's not doing that.
Mm-hmm. And how does your teeth develop differently if you're mouth breathing versus breathing properly with your tongue on the roof of your mouth?
Well, I mean, your teeth are in your skull and they're developing, but they need room to come in. So if you don't nasal breathe and your jaws are narrow, you're going to have very crowded teeth. Not to mention cavities. I mean, that's another huge topic. Our diet is clean. We don't have any sugar. Like my kid just gets so many cavities. When your jaws are narrow and you're breathing through your mouth and your teeth are crooked, your saliva composition is different. Your mouth is more dry. That leads to just a cascade of a plethora of bacteria having a party in your mouth, causing cavities.
And so you're talking teeth not developing properly, jaw and face not developing to its full potential. You're talking more likely to get sick.
Absolutely.
What kind of sickness? What do you mean by that?
Oh my
Explain
gosh,
more.
upper respiratory infections, ear infections. I very commonly in my office, I will see patients who are like, my daughter just gets chronic ear infections. And I'm looking at this child who is not swallowing properly because they have poor muscle tone in their tongue. Maybe they're tongue-tied. Their jaws are too small and they're not breathing through their nose. And I've had such success with ear infection resolution when we have gotten a patient breathing through their nose again and expanded their arches and improved their sleep. I mean, so much about your health and your immunology is tied to how well you heal and recover at night when you're sleeping, right? So yeah, it's all very connected.
It's all tied together. And I think a lot of people don't even think about how important regenerative sleep is. And if you're not sleeping well, you're not going to feel your best the next day. So you have even a whole list through Toothpillow, which you're the founder of. We'll talk more about that later. A whole list of different symptoms that could be tied to not breathing properly. Can you explain some of those?
Yes. I mean, and just linking some of the symptoms to even needing to talk to a dentist is like wild for people, you know? So tooth grinding is really common in children and that suffer some sleep disorder breathing, and it's not normal, and snoring. So some of the really common ones I would say, tooth grinding, snoring. Are you mouth breathing like we were talking about? Does your child have dark circles under their eyes? Are they hyperactive? Like how's their behavior? Are they a good learner at school? Are you getting conversations with parent or with your kid's teacher that they're not able to pay attention? They're very disruptive in class. The first thing we should be thinking is, how is that child's sleep? Truly, at the base of all of it, before we're putting kids on medication, before we're even going there, how are they sleeping? And the fact of the matter is, some parents really don't know because their kid's a little bit older. Their kid's not sleeping with them anymore. They go to bed and they wake up. So they think, oh, my kid's sleep is great. No, you don't know the quality of that sleep. And that is where an airway assessment can tell me the quality of your child's sleep. Because I can look at your child's face, just literally pictures of their face from the side, from the front, and tell you that child is not sleeping well at night. That child's a mouth breather.
That's amazing that you can see that.
Hey you guys, quickly, I want to pop in here and tell you about the best Christmas gift to give someone you love that you haven't figured out what to get them yet. It's these raw optics glasses. I used to buy blue blocker glasses on Amazon, and I ended up thinking that the blue blocker industry was a gimmick because I saw no actual difference in my health and in my life whatsoever. But then I learned about raw optics and I got these glasses. I basically begged them to become my title sponsor for the rest of the season because I have become such a super huge fan. As soon as I put on my first glasses, I immediately felt a nervous system difference. My eyes used to get so tired when I would be on the screen all day working on the computer. Now my eyes feel protected. My eyes never get tired. And for the sunset glasses, sometimes I would have to edit on the computer at night for like a work project that I had a deadline for. And my eyes were not protected at all. By the time I would go to bed, my nervous system was so shaky, I couldn't fall asleep and I would get terrible sleep that night. But now if I have a little work thing to do, or if I watch a show with my husband before bed, we always wear our sunset raw optics glasses, and I fall right to sleep now and get amazing deep sleep. It has been such a game changer for me. Clearly, we need light during the day and we need it to be dark at night. And if you're wearing blue blocker glasses that are clear, they aren't doing anything. This is something the founder Matt talks a lot about. And the way that his team engineered these glasses will blow you away. So they are an investment, but right now they have a holiday deal. You get 15% off your first pair and 20% off your second pair on all US orders and 2-day free shipping. So it'll make it in time for Christmas. So if you have a loved one who's on the screens a lot or under fluorescent light or traveling a lot, they're perfect for traveling. Or for your kids as stocking stuffers to wear when they're on screens, they're really cool. Raw Optics is the only brand that takes into consideration the circadian rhythm that we need for our optimal health. And the best way to support this show is to use my link below when you make your purchase. It makes a big difference. Get some for yourself, get some for your loved ones. You are not going to regret this purchase, and it would make a perfect holiday gift. I can't wait. I actually did that. I actually went and sneakily got the prescription of a loved one, found it out roundabout, and it's going to be a surprise gift who's on their screens a lot, and I cannot wait to give it to that person I love for Christmas.
And what would be some of the things that would happen at night if you're not sleeping well? Aside from snoring and teeth
tossing
grinding.
and turning, night sweats, bedwetting. My daughter had terrible night sweats. She would be all over her crib. So I mean, she would, if you go in and your kids' blankets are everywhere and they're at one end and the other, that's not normal during sleep. But the night sweats was a tricky one because that's not on the forefront of people thinking like, oh, could that have been an oxygen issue? Like, was my child struggling to breathe when that was happening? It is common. It's a common symptom of sleep disorder breathing. So I think those are the biggest things that will resonate with families when they're thinking about like, is my child sleeping well or not? And also, is it really hard to wake them up? How are they when you wake them up? Are they really cranky? Do they feel like they should have been able to stay in bed longer? Or are they ready to hop up and out of bed and enjoy their day?
Yeah. I think about even for myself, the times that I'm sleeping the best, I go to sleep and then the next thing I remember, it's morning.
Yes.
Like you
Oh
don't
my
even
gosh, it's
remember,
beautiful.
you don't even remember the night.
Yeah.
You might even be in the same position you were when you fell asleep. Like that is like the most
Gold.
optimal sleep you're going to get. So if your child is tossing and turning a lot in bed, whether they're co-sleeping with you or in another room or all these other symptoms that you're mentioning, I think it's just something that as parents often can just go unlooked, like you're unnoticed. You're thinking about food and you're thinking about, making sure they get sunshine and, having a healthy family life. And maybe breathing is not something most people are thinking because we all breathe and this is just natural for us.
And who knew there was a right way to breathe, right? And there's a right way. And I think the families that are co-sleeping, man, they catch this stuff quickly. Like those moms will know, he used to be still and he is kicking me all night. His body is moving. Like he is not resting. And is that normal or not? And you got to look at things like iron levels in children, like how's their iron level, because that will cause them to have a lot of restless leg symptoms or like moving around a lot. So there's a lot that we dive into. I ask those questions on our website for the families to start thinking more about, well, yes, they do that. Why is she asking that? Like, yes, they do that. Is that something that could be linked to their breathing or their oxygen? So it's all about that education, because what we have been able to cure in families and help thousands and thousands of children to breathe better and just be happier, healthier babies, we have to ask different questions, as a dentist, which is wild.
Yeah. I want to talk about dentistry, but before we get there, can you also kind of break it down a little bit about tongue posture? Because someone can have their mouth closed. A child can have their mouth closed throughout the day, but if their tongue isn't suctioned to the roof of the mouth, that's also going to be causing problems. So how much should it be suction? Should it be resting? Should we be asking our kids, where's your mouth when your mouth closed? Let's just kind of go into that.
So that's really important. And I have personal experience with that because I had a grade 4 tongue tie up till 2.5 years ago in my life. So it was a wild journey for me to ever even figure out that my tongue has a home where it should be and how it should sit. But there's a couple of things I think are important to know. Like your teeth should never touch each other except when you are chewing or swallowing. But your mouth should be closed and your jaw should be at rest. And the way your jaw can be at rest without your teeth touching together is by having your tongue up. So your tongue should touch in the front part, towards the front part of your palate, all the way to the middle, as far back as you can. If you can't feel kind of these 3 distinct points where they should be at the roof of the mouth, then you might have a low-lying tongue posture. Or you might have a tongue tie. I mean, we could spend an hour talking about tongue ties. So at rest, your tongue should be up and your lips should be closed. And you should be breathing through your nose. If your tongue is low and your mouth is open, you're going to see, and you can tell this in kids because you look at them from the side and it's like, they don't have a double chin, but you're just going to see that their jawline and where their neck is setting is not appropriate. And there is something called mewing. I'm not sure if you've heard about the craze and stuff with mewing. It's fabulous and it's really motivating for teenagers. They will definitely do their myo exercises for me if they know I know about mewing. I'm like the cool dentist that knows about mewing. And pushing your tongue up like that is so good for this under part of your jaw, and just goes to show like what it should look like, how your lower jaw should be developing and where your tongue should sit. So that was kind of a long-winded explanation for it, but I want people to know that grinding your teeth is not normal, and the way your teeth touch, like you should not be clenching all day. That's firing muscles that you do not want to fire.
I think everyone listening now is like, they're like picturing, they're trying to feel the way that they're actually doing it naturally. That's so fascinating.
And it just lets your jaw hang, and it's really good for your TMJ to just be relaxed and have your tongue up.
So what exactly is mewing? I know it's super popular with teens. How beneficial is it?
It's very beneficial because for me, I look at it from a perspective of one, they're pushing their tongue up to the roof of their mouth. So it's like you're pushing, you're toning, you're doing workout. Just like myofunctional therapy. I mean, they think it's something totally new, and I'm like, this is in myofunctional therapy. But when they do that, it works out this under part, and they feel like it gives them a very chiseled jawline.
So are you just swallowing? Are you suctioning it over and over?
You hold.
Yeah.
And then, you're going to swallow naturally. Sometimes that happens too, but you just want to be putting pressure at the roof of the mouth. And it just immediately, if you look in the mirror and you're like at rest and then you mew, which I can't do while I'm talking, it's a big difference in here. And you can see how it's happening. Yeah,
totally. Yeah. I find this so fascinating because I grew up with mouth breathing issues. I had allergies. My mom at some point like took out dairy for me, which helped. Or did like those alternative type milks, and that definitely helped. But I definitely had a stuffy nose, congestion a lot. And so I always felt like my lower jaw didn't develop to its full potential in the way of how I feel in my body, that closing my mouth takes effort.
Yeah.
It doesn't come naturally. I see people where, their mouth is closed and there's no effort happening in their
you don't see the mentalis muscle
in the chin. Yeah. And for me to keep it closed takes effort, though I have done myofunctional therapy a couple of years ago, which was very beneficial, but it does kind of feel like you have to continually do it to keep that strength or lifestyle habits, which kind of leads into that. So what is the cause of all this? Would you call it an epidemic of poor breathing? Mm-hmm. What is the cause of poor breathing?
I think we can say without a shadow of a doubt that it's Western culture and diet, because we can look just simply a few hundred years ago and see much larger faces and jaws. And then you have the introduction of soft foods, very processed foods, and you have a lack of muscle action happening in our babies and less breastfeeding just in general, which I do feel like the narrative there has changed and more moms are trying so much harder to do it longer just because they know from a growth and development perspective, it's better for their baby's jaws, but we don't breastfeed as long as most cultures did. We haven't for a long time. And we have a lot of melt in your mouth, applesauces, little yogurt melts, like things that the children can literally just put it in their mouth and just barely use any muscles to swallow. And you want your child eating something tough. You really do. I have pictures of my youngest when I was like, okay, we're going to do the hardest food diet with him. And he's got like a raw cucumber and he's like biting it. And I'm like, yes, because he can't it's not just going to dissolve in his mouth. It's not going to go away. And he has the best jaws. Like, I feel like you get it right somewhere in there with your number of kids of what, where you're doing. And so I'm a big proponent of something called baby-led weaning, which is just there's a book written about how to just introduce harder food diets to your children and safely, because obviously we don't want them to choke, but the harder the food, just think like if you work out, if you never work out and you're not using your muscles, like you're not going to have toned muscles. It's just not going to happen. And with babies, their muscles are dictating their bone growth. So we need to be looking at it through a different lens of like, it's actually critical that we're making them exercise their mouth and their tongue and their oral muscles early on, because it's going to change how they grow, like how their face is literally shaped. And it really is, I think, one of the most critical things we will do as a parent for our child, because how your child's face develops, really how their airway develops, if we're being quite frank, is going to determine the longevity in their life. Like it's going to change how they age and how their body heals and illnesses that they can contract. I mean, this really is that big of a deal.
Yeah. And I think there's such an effort that has to happen in today's society to make sure that you are feeding your children in a healthy way compared to how it was before the introduction of grocery stores and ultra processed foods. Absolutely. It probably wasn't even a thought on their mind. It just was natural. This is just what we eat. But now we're living in a world of being in the world, not of the world, being different than the massive way that the majority of how people do life. Absolutely. And having to be really conscious about how we're making these choices. And then add on top of it, there's, a fear that's kind of added on top of children eating harder foods and saying you should just give them baby food, you should just give them soft foods, you don't have to worry about the choking. And we all care about our children and we want to make sure that nothing happens to them. And so the introduction of soft baby foods, it was probably, I mean, what do you think? I feel like it was largely about a fear-based, about making sure your child doesn't choke.
And very money driven. I
Yeah.
mean, let's be for real. They can package up all this stuff to make it very easy for you as the busy working mom. Like just the overall culture in the United States for moms are expected to go back to work and just keep on keeping on. It's like, well, here's all these baby food jars and this is all you need to do. This is all you need to give them. And it's like, if you don't have an airway dentist in your life, if you are completely like your scope is not healthcare or whatever, you're not thinking of it. Like I had applesauce growing up. Like it wasn't the staple of my meals by any means, but I had it. So you're not thinking of soft food as a danger to your child's jaw development. And I'm here to tell you it is. So.
Wow. I mean, that is a pretty strong statement. I love it though. So would you say like just don't give your baby soft foods at all, or what is your recommendation?
I would just make sure
parents?
that your child can have some soft food.
No, I love it.
Yes.
No, I'm sorry. We need
yes.
more of this, like a little bit of a tough mentality of like giving this to a straight type of thing, you know? Because I think sometimes we hear things, oh yeah, okay, I'll try to give him a carrot once a day. That type of, I think that can be an easy thing that you take from a message like that, because there's so much pressure to, just like you said, the hustle of life, going fast, and I don't have time to slow down, and I don't have time to be intentional with food for my children. You know?
I just think knowledge is power. So I think if you hear this and you understand that it's risky, if that's basically the basis of your child's diet, which I think for kids, once you start introducing foods, like it is the basis of their diet. Like if you don't know how to give harder foods, everything's going to be very, very soft. It is. I mean, think back to feeding your 8 or 9 or 10-month-old if you had started introducing food around that time. Like, you're not giving them anything hard yet, you know? And even goes back to like teeth or toys. Like, we could talk about that. Like, what are we putting in their mouth to let them play with? Like, there are very good teether toys made now that are going to stimulate biting, which is really good too. So yeah, I would say just know that there's consequences for what you choose to give your child. I mean, that goes to ingredients all the way to like toughness and consistency. And that consistency needs to be tougher or you're going to have weaker muscles.
Yeah.
Which means you're going to have smaller jaws.
Yeah. I mean, the convenience factor, I think, is such a big part for parents. I know for myself on my own journey with 5 kids, my first child, it was like my 100% all of, we're going to eat lots of vegetables. And I was, stay at home mom at that point in the beginning. And it was the best. And my child, my first Elvis, he ate so many vegetables. I had pictures of him eating a giant raw carrot and zucchini and just like loving it.
Life, yeah.
And he would eat these salads. And then when I had started my YouTube channel, parents would say, my child is eating salads now because your son, the videos of your son eating salads is encouraging them to eat salads. And he ate so many crunchy vegetables. And to this day, he is my like go-to vegetable eater. He will eat all the vegetables. He loves it all. The problem is when they get older, because I think those first 3 years are so important to develop their,
hugely.
I'm sure you would agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to develop their taste buds and their habits of what they think of what kind of foods they want to eat. And so the problem that I have found is that as my older kids get older, they have other friends who eat ultra processed foods. And you don't want to be the mom that's like, we don't eat that. So you don't want them to grow up feeling like they never get to eat that stuff. So yeah, when they're out with their friends, but then it does end up coming into the house a bit, or, oh, can we buy this at the grocery store? I had this at my friend's house and it was so good. Okay, let's do that. And then your younger kids end up enjoying some of that when they're younger. Right. At least this has just been my story.
Yes.
Then the younger kids end up eating it at an earlier age than I would have if I didn't have the influence of the older kids with like giving that more freedom. Yeah. And so then the younger kids end up developing a palate where they don't love vegetables as much as like the beginning. The
couldn't agree more.
Do.
Same with my kids.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I like to say, like, you get tired. I mean, we have a bunch of babies and stuff, but it's so true. My oldest got the most attention when it came to what he was eating every day. And it was just like so much fun. And the more kiddos you have, like stuff like that's going to happen. And I really do think that's real life. And a whole bunch of moms are going to just resonate with you saying that, because we're not perfect, but I feel like as long as the effort there and the knowledge is there for what we're trying to do and how we can make them be the healthiest kids ever, just my passion in general, like they're doing
Hey, you guys, a little break to tell you about my new favorite home care brand, Natuary. If you care about what goes in your body, you likely care about what goes in your home too, because wellness starts in your home. Enter Natuary, where nature meets high-performance home care. Bio-based, biodegradable, and free of hormone disruptors. There's no trade-offs ever. Natuary is here to help health-conscious homemakers like myself and you listening to embrace the beauty of doing more with less. Their smart, minimalist formulas arm you with the very best against grime, odor, and dirt in your space so that you can keep a clean home without sacrificing your health in the process. Their household cleaning concentrate is a total multitasker. Just one bottle for your counters, floors, bathrooms, all of it. And what completely sets them apart from other brands is that it's powered by probiotics. Just like your gut has good bacteria, Natuary's cleaner adds beneficial probiotics to your surfaces. They wake up when they sense dirt or spills and keep working long after you wipe, so your home actually stays cleaner for longer. Their laundry system, aside from being just the most beautiful laundry detergent packaging I've ever seen, is equally brilliant. Plant-powered enzymes and amino acid surfactants that tackle everything from grease to grass stains, while being gentle on fabrics and skin. Plus, they neutralize odors instead of masking them with fake fragrance. Natury does their homework so you can clean without question. They are committed to developing products with transparency and common sense. Natuary is simple, smart, and beautiful. From their reusable glass bottles to their household cleaning refillable concentrates. Visit natuary.com. That's NATUARY.com and use my code ELLEN for 10% off your starter kit. And experience with me what it feels like to clean without compromise. I remember when I had my first kid, people who had multiple kids would be like, well, just wait till you have more kids. It gets harder. And I was like, well, I'll show them. Yes. And I did over like a few kids. Like I still was like, look, we're still eating lots of salads. We're still, but then by the fifth kid, I was like, okay, we're doing paper towels now. Like I'm not washing cloth towels anymore. Or just like little things like that, that just shifted. Or I'm not making homemade pasta sauce anymore. I'm going to buy store-bought pasta sauce. You know, just things like that shifted definitely by the time I had the fifth kid. Something turned for me.
Yeah. I know. It's just part of the journey though. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
You know?
So can you explain tough foods? What would be a list, like like a list of the tough foods that you suggest? I think sometimes people get lost because of the world that we're in. You know, even something like soup that has a lot of vegetables, it's very soft.
Yeah,
generally.
just don't boil it. I would say whatever you gotta do it safely, and that's why I talked about that book, because I feel like it really just hand holds moms as to like how to prepare the food in a safe way. But some of the vegetables that we've already talked about, I think, like obviously carrots. My son was cucumbers, and I would slice them, but I would have it in a way that he could like hold it safely and just sit there and gnaw on it, because he only had a couple of teeth. You know, it was just kind of funny watching him try it, and it's good. Celery's another one that I feel like as a mom, you can like sit there and monitor them, but you're not as worried that like a little piece is going to like break off, because celery is so stringy and that's good. And so anything that they're chewing on, like it's going to stimulate the muscles to work harder, and you want them to get some good. I would freeze stuff. I've literally I would freeze some fruit for my son and put it in something that he could just sit there and like gnaw on, like a little feeder or whatever. And that was great for me, because that also gave me more time as I'm like doing the dishes or whatever else. And he's getting the nutrients from the fruit, but it is harder, and it's like a safe way to deliver it. So whether it's meat, whether it's vegetables, whatever it is you're doing, just make sure that you know that tongue needs to be pressing up against the roof of their mouth to try to like break it down and enjoy the nutrients of it. And they're gonna be stronger babies.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that? There is kind of a 2-camp type thing. I don't know if it is a 2-camp, but there is a group that is like, you need to be eating a lot of meat to be able to have proper jaw development, and it's all about meat. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that? I
mean, I feel like I'm not trying to stay neutral, but I stay relatively neutral in the fact that if you're chewing on like T-bone or something, you're doing the same thing that you'd be chewing on if you were chewing on like a bite stick or some of the things that we give for myofunctional therapy tools. So, I mean, harder things like beef jerky or whatever, as they're gnawing on, that's hard. Again, it's just going to be making the muscles work harder. So, you know, wherever you land on the side of nutrients from meat or nutrients from plant-based, just know that if any of those are too soft, because you can boil meat and it's like not going to do what it's going to do, you're not going to get the same effect, because it's purely just the muscles of the mouth need to work.
Yeah, it's so true. I think we have a tendency to overcook things and make them super soft.
Even then you kill the nutrients anyway at that point. So you're not getting it.
Even things like pasta or breads, where people are buying breads that are the super soft, ultra processed breads instead of the homemade sourdough that has the hard crust.
Hard bread, yes.
Eat the crust.
Yeah, noodles aren't really going to do you much for you, so I can't say that's going to help with jaws.
What was it?
Noodles.
Noodles, yes.
Just because they're soft and stuff like that. But, you know, chicken and things like that are okay. It just, you gotta make sure that it's not melt in your mouth, whatever it is. And that's really what I want the take home message to be, is just make sure that your kid has to kind of work when they're eating, because we're used to just making it so simple. And again, convenience, like put everything on a plate and it's all like relatively soft, and we can kind of do other things maybe while they're eating or whatever. And it's really just important that they have to earn that food that's going in.
Yes.
I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times it starts out with just a little bit of convenience. Oh, my kid isn't eating that much of this. And so let me just give him more of this because he eats more of it. But then the more they get of that, then the more they want that and the less they want to do that work for harder foods. But I mean, the truth is, if you are only eating that like super nutritious foods throughout the day at home, that is what they're going to grow up eating. They're not going to know the difference. 100%. You know, like my first kid, I literally, when we would go to a pizza restaurant for someone's birthday, he was chewing on kale and coconut meat. And he didn't even care because he had never eaten pizza before. And all the parents were like, wait, how is this 4-year-old not wanting pizza? I'm like, because we just eat coconut and kale. And it was just so, it's so interesting. That is like it's just hard because you don't want to be like, you don't want to end up being like, oh, you never ever do this at a certain point. But then the reality is the more that you end up eating some of those foods, especially the younger they are, the more that they develop a palate and become more picky and picky eaters and that stuff. Okay, what are your thoughts about picky eaters?
Yeah, I think picky eating is really tricky because I have one of those. And I lose sleep over like, is she getting enough nutrients and protein that she needs in her body all the time? Because I'm just like, she will just go for the things that are not ideal compared to my sons. Well, she had a tongue tie. So my daughter, I fixed her tongue tie when she was about 5.5. I felt like she'd finally gotten old enough to where we could do some myofunctional therapy and I could like get in and do it with, and it changed the way she ate food, like truly. Now, does she still have a problem with sugar? 100%. I think her brain is literally wired to want sugar all the time. And it's hard as a parent, like you're saying, you don't want to be like, oh, you can't have this. But I've had to learn that whatever I have in the house, I need to be okay with them eating. So if I'm buying it and they're eating it, then I need to be okay with that because I'm literally providing it to her. But picky eating, once I realized her tongue dysfunction from the tongue tie from birth all the way until I fixed it at 5, I was like, that changes the way textures feel for them, the way they swallow. Like, I think there's just so much that goes into what was safe for them to eat when they were little, like what they liked, and then how that changed as they got older and older. And you kind of always want to go back to what you shouldn't have or like what you felt like was a good food for you that may not have been. So picky eating, I always go first thing, how are they breathing? How are they sleeping? What do their jaws look like? Is their palate even wide enough to accommodate the bolus of food that their tongue is going to be trying to like help them chew and swallow? Because if it's not, they're going to be afraid to have things that are thicker. Like they aren't going to want that bite of meat or whatever's on the plate because they're afraid they're going to choke on it. They're afraid. It is just like they know, it's like their body knows. So I just think it's important to rule out just, oh, they're just picky. It's like, well, no, there could be like actual underlying muscle dysfunction happening that we need to identify first. And maybe they won't be as picky, or if they gag a lot, like they can't take pills or supplements or whatever. Like, is there a reason why they're gagging so badly? And I see gagging resolve a ton when we do airway treatment, like with Toothpillow. It's wild. And I'm like, okay, you will not be the one that's choking on whatever you're taking when you get older, on with your life.
Totally.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend to parents how to assess a tongue or lip tie?
So I would tell them to go in the mirror and look underneath their kid's tongue. And you can Google tongue ties. Like you can Google the little charts that we use of grading how severe they are and try to see what you see under there, first and foremost. But then I built Toothpillow so that you could submit photos of your child to us and access a incredibly competent, incredible array of airway dentists across the United States. Wow. And submit these pictures and we're going to look at them and we're going to tell you exactly what we would do if you were in our chair. And you can't just find an airway dentist on any corner. You just can't.
So can you break down Toothpillow for those? Because I'm sure there's a lot of parents listening who are like, okay, I didn't feed them the soft foods when they were little, or maybe I did, or the hard foods, or maybe they did and they breastfed and there's still some underlying things that they're noticing, some symptoms. Mm-hmm. What should they do at this point? Their kid's a little bit older. Where does Toothpillow enter in, and what can they do just overall to help support their child's development? So, I built Toothpillow to increase the access to the care and knowledge and education direct to the moms. I realized that and I train dentists every single week. I absolutely love teaching this to make sure that they can help their patients. But I wanted this virtual platform so that we could parents could literally access this information from anywhere and start learning right away. Because the power of these mom groups and these podcasts like Your Reach that you have with people is information and knowledge is key. And when you know better, you want to do better for your child. So if you're noticing signs and symptoms, even though you've done everything in the world, we are very many generations in with this, with processed diet and underdeveloped jaws and the
And just, we were talking earlier about how we can tell like in utero that a baby is having a smaller jaw, which is probably going to lead to sleep disorder breathing.
Can you go into that before we get more into Toothpillow? What is that about?
So Dr. Kevin Boyd is incredible in the space, and he is studying literally being able to measure the mandible, the lower jaw, and identify whether a baby in utero is going to have problems with their craniofacial growth and development.
That is wild.
And it's wild. And he's just a pioneer in this space, and he links it right back to nutrition with the mom, and he's talking to the pregnant mom about things that she can change. And I am not an expert in that like he is, but you can look up his work. I'm sure this is going to get bigger and bigger with time, because the more we can try to prevent that while our baby's growing, obviously the better. But if you've done all that and you're to the point where you're like, my kid is snoring, they're grinding their teeth, I know they're not sleeping well, all the things we talked about originally, you can go to toothpillow.com and you can click, is my child a candidate? And we have it as a question mark because unfortunately, based on age and severity, I can't always approve your child for treatment virtually. So we do allow submissions between the ages of 3 and 12, and the earlier the better. Like, I mean, I don't need all this horrible pain and suffering and symptoms list in order to say, okay, yeah, I'll prescribe you a tooth pillow. I want you to identify it when it's just a little bit of mouth breathing or a little bit of picky eating or whatever it is when they're little, so that we can start getting to the root cause sooner than later. So in that process, you need your child with you, because I'm going to ask you to take pictures. I just need pictures. I mean, you just show me a kid and I will say yes or no, and I need to see their teeth. I also have you fill out a thorough medical history, obviously, and a sleep questionnaire, because I want to know what's happening behind the scenes, what happens when they're sleeping. And maybe you don't know the answers to all of them, but it's going to make you think, maybe I should go check on them while they're sleeping. I want to be able to answer this question. I don't know. And it's okay if you don't know. You can put you don't know. But still, just a really thorough intake. After that, Dr. Ben Moralia and myself will screen. We screen thousands of children every single month to make sure that they are appropriate for virtual care. And if that is true and your kid passes and we feel like it's appropriate and safe to send it to you and do virtual care, then you will be linked with the amazing airway dentist in your state. And that is how the process kind of works behind the scenes. And then you'll be sent a personalized video and just an assessment on your child. And you can decide at that point if you want to move forward with treatment.
So what is Toothpillow exactly, and how is it different than braces?
Oh, I love that question, because it couldn't be more different. Yeah. So Toothpillow is the name of the company, just to be very, very clear. It is not a proprietary appliance, but in my practice, the little guided growth appliances that I was using, I nicknamed a tooth pillow because I just thought it was cuter. I'll be like, do you have a tooth pillow? Like, thank you. There a lot went into like, what do we name this company? And I'm like, I want tooth pillow to be a household name. Like,
yes.
This is a pillow for your teeth and it's going to help you to breathe.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much. So I was calling it that, but the actual tooth pillow is our virtual dental office in the sky is what we like to say. So we are a very large teledentistry company that works with local providers to provide the care to your child based on whatever state you're in. I'm licensed in the state of Texas, so I'm not going to be doing this in any other state but Texas, right? So that's kind of what it broadly scope what Toothpillow is. Now we use a couple of different brands of oral appliance based on what is appropriate for your child, because it's all different. They're all different sizes. They all have different mechanisms of action. So yours might look a little different than the one that somebody posted on social media, but we are trying to give you the most customized care that we can without you actually being in our office. So, and then braces is tooth movement. So I want to be very clear about this. When we are talking about phase 1, sleep disordered breathing treatments, okay, we are talking about your child's jaws. We're not talking about straightening their teeth. Now, we have thousands of cases of kids who have beautifully straight teeth. And my husband likes to say the side effect of what we do with sleep disorder breathing treatment is cosmetic. Because, oh, wow, your body's working like it's supposed to. Like, what an idea. So we couldn't be farther from braces, which is a specific tooth movement. And we are like phase 1 orthodontics, if that makes sense.
Phase 1 orthodontics.
Phase 1, jaws and breathing.
Expanding the jaw
Yes.
that naturally straightens the teeth. Whereas braces are a Band-Aid solution, what I kind of think.
Right. Yeah, correct. So we're going to do tooth movements on underdeveloped jaws.
Yes.
And those movements will definitely be temporary. I get a lot of hate on my social media for saying that braces are a temporary solution for straight teeth.
They are 100% temporary.
Because that's what it is.
The only way it stays straight is if you wear a retainer for the rest of your life.
Right.
If you have a built-in retainer for your life, maybe on the bottom teeth, those will stay straight. But if you don't have a built-in for the top teeth, those are gonna, if you have poor habits or
poor
an
musculature.
underdeveloped jaw, because that's what's so interesting is if you don't do this when they're young, it's so much harder when you're older. You can start developing better habits, but your jaw is developed.
Absolutely.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, and all we do is wait. All we do is wait until we're 12 or 13 to start doing tooth movements. But a girl is 94% developed in her head and neck by 12.
Wow.
I don't know if you had braces. I had braces put on me
did.
when I was 13, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I had so much that I've had to undo in my own smile and correct as I older. I had headgear the wrong way. I mean, I have my whole own orthodontic nightmare story. But we have to start earlier. And that's where orthodontics has been getting it wrong forever. For the last 50 years, in my opinion. It's, we don't do anything with baby teeth. We just wait till the adult teeth come in. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do anything with baby teeth either. I want to fix jaws. It just drives me crazy. And sometimes if a parent, is in a consult with me and maybe is misunderstanding and they're like, well, why should I do anything on baby teeth? They're just going back to that. And I'm like, great question. Obviously I wasn't very clear. Let's back up because I don't care about the position of their baby teeth at all. I want their jaws to be wide, And of course I care where the position is, but I want their jaws to be wide and it needs to not be just focusing on what do the teeth look like. It's breathing and health and longevity.
Yes. It's so fascinating because if you go to an orthodontist, this has been my experience, you bring up something about airway dentistry or jaw development, you literally get kind of laughed off a little
Absolutely.
bit. A little bit
Sad.
you don't know what you're talking about. You're not an expert. I'm an expert. At least this has been an experience. And, it's just not typical in a typical orthodontist office to have any knowledge or understanding, even a dentist office, even a holistic dentist office.
I know.
I remember, just getting my teeth cleaned.
Right.
I'm like, hey, I've been learning about the importance of jaw development. And I didn't even know all this stuff. This makes so much sense. Now it makes sense why, my first kid was developing in this way. He ate so many hard foods, all this stuff. And I'm understanding this. And they're like, what are you talking about?
This is wild that this is what I promote and do when I had none of this in dental school. I didn't. I mean, I started off in my sleep journey as a provider for adults. I just knew that they were grinding their teeth and I'd heard that could be maybe sleep apnea, although I didn't even know what sleep apnea truly was. I thought you had to be obese to have it, which is totally false. And so I had my own journey of realizing oh my gosh, they omitted one of the most important things in my very expensive dental training that we should have been talking about. In my pediatric residency, when I would go through the peds residency program, come on, we have to do better with the kids. They were more focused on teaching us general dentists, sealants and fillings and stuff. And you have to know that. I mean, you're a dentist. You got to be able to fix a cavity, for sure. But we should have been why is this child needing all this decay removed from their mouth? And if their mom is not feeding them tons of sugar or juice in their bottle or whatever it is. And that is what we should have spent our time learning. And so once I realized all that, I was just all in, unstoppable. I'm every mom needs to know this because their child could be an adult with hypertension because a dentist missed the fact that they were a mouth breather.
Wow. And did you, in dentist school, do they teach anything about proper jaw development, about the root cause? I mean, it's not surprising because that is how all our medical system is, where it's about treating the problem now rather than, going to the root cause and shifting lifestyle factors to help, shift the outcome of what you're experiencing. That's just not, why?
I hate to say it, but politics. There's huge politics involved in what they think general dentists should be doing with orthodontics versus it being the orthodontist that doing it. What's wild is the orthodontists actually invented myofunctional therapy.
Really?
Oh yeah. The really old school orthos totally knew this stuff and totally did it and provided very different care than what you're seeing now. And my sources have told me it was pulled from the curriculum a few decades ago. And now we have generations of young orthos coming out thinking they know everything and they're going to make all these perfectly straight teeth. They have no idea the missing link with the musculature and is really sad. So now you have all these airway dentists that are okay, cool. You don't want to do it. No problem. I mean, the head of the orthodontic societies are telling them they want nothing to do with airway. It's in their white paper. Okay. And don't even get me started on that because I'll get, anyways, but I was very happy. But I was great, please stay out of it. You don't want anything to do with it because you don't know how to treat it because you're not really trained in treating anybody under age 7 or 9. That's where the cutoff is. They don't even treat the ages we're talking about. So that's fine. You don't have to, but we are, and stay out of it because we do have the evidence and we do have the backup. We know what we're doing and we're saving these kids. They would be the best ones to do it. When you think about it, it's really sad. Because like, had they gotten the education and learned what we learned and been able to do this, they'd be unstoppable. But instead, they're deciding to take a stance on it in the negative, and we're all just passing them by.
You know, I've always been intentional about what my kids consume. And this intentionality doesn't apply only to the food we put in our bodies. It extends to what they watch and read too, which is why I love Brave Plus. Because let's be honest, so much of what's out there for kids is loud, fast, and overstimulating, and not in a good way. Bright flashing lights, hyper dopamine grabs, and content that doesn't even align with the values we teach and model in our homes. Media today is designed to hook their attention, not nourish their hearts and minds. And that's the same reason I'm intentional with food. I want nourishment, not just empty calories. So I trust Brave Plus, a streaming platform where every show is curated by parents and crafted for kids with no ads, no harmful messages, and no overstimulation. The content is chosen to help build character, spark imagination, and support healthy development, not undermine it. And one of my favorite parts is the Brave Book Club. Every month, we get a new book delivered straight to our door that teaches a different character building value through imaginative stories and activities. My kids are completely obsessed with it. So right now, head to bravebooks.com/Ellen to get 20% off the book club and enjoy full access to Brave Plus completely free with your subscription. It is such a good deal. With Brave Plus, it's never been easier to be intentional about your kids' entertainment, the way you already are about everything else that matters most. So what was the light bulb moment for you that led you to airway dentistry?
I flew to Colorado and listened to a lecture by Dr. Moralia. It was a very absolutely like, it was a turning point in my career because I was flying to and from this very expensive residency program for sleep apnea. And I was there to learn adults, and it's a whole big thing. Fixing adults is hard. Like really, there's a lot wrong with us by the time we've been breathing wrong our whole life. And I saw this doctor get up and show cases of kids that he had never put braces on and their teeth look freaking perfect. And he was talking about how, yeah, they used to stop breathing like 10 times an hour. They don't stop breathing at all anymore. And they're A students. And he had case after case after case after case. And I'm going to tell you, I'm sitting in the front row because that was just my personality anyway, like writing down everything. And I'm looking around the room like, is anybody else kind of pissed that they never learned this before? Like this guy's like probably, I don't know, 15 years older than me or so. And he's been practicing that much longer than me. And he's been saving all these kids and I don't know about it. And I came home the first year that I really implemented pediatric care in my practice. I started like 250 cases, and it was like drinking from a fire hose because I was like, your child this is what they need, like just right away. And I was just handing out Toothpillows like crazy. And then I was following up and I was watching these cases. I was like, oh my gosh, like they're not class 2 anymore. Like their jaw's not back anymore. Their jaw came forward. They're breathing better. The mom says they're not bedwetting anymore. They're off ADHD meds. It was like a year or two for me of just like, I kind of like hid in my practice and like lived there. I should have had like a bed in the practice and saw all these results, but then realized I don't have enough appointment or time. I have babies at home. Like, how can I help more kids? Because if people were flying in from out of state, they were driving 6 to 7 to 8 hours. And that's where, when I got asked by the current president and CEO of Toothpillow, hey, we have this idea. I was like, oh my gosh. And still, I tell them all the time, we've been in business together a long time, but I'm still like, thank you so much for picking me. Thank you so much for like telling me you were thinking about doing this, because we've helped over 9,000 children and I would have never, ever had that impact in my private practice.
Right.
Yeah. There's not enough hours in the day.
Reaching so many more people now.
Yes.
That is so fantastic.
Thank
You are clearly the right person for this. I
Thank
can
you.
feel that fire in you.
Thank
I mean, that's how I am in so many things in my
Yes.
life. And it's just that drive that keeps you moving forward and in this positive direction. And the fact that you saw these differences and realizing like, wow, we might not need these braces that are a Band-Aid solution, because I had braces as a kid, didn't wear my retainer, my teeth got crooked again. Then I got Invisalign, and now I have Invisalign, like, you know, that you wear at
Retainers.
night. So what do you do now? Do you still wear a retainer?
So
Or
actually,
what's the
so
long-term
actually I
solution?
don't, which is a little bit controversial, but I don't know if because I did the myo and my frenectomy, it's just holding as beautifully as it is, because I was usually with adults, once you do expansion treatment with me, and then if we do Invisalign, I do tell you, like, you need to put your retainers in a few times a week, like, because it could shift. And they've invested a lot of money. So I'm always coming at from the side of like, just please, you have them, I'm giving them to you, like pay attention, see after 6 to 9 months, do you feel like you get any relapse? Do you feel like anything moves? With skeletal development, I'm not so worried about them losing like the bone that they've grown or anything like that. But when teeth have memory, like they want to rotate again or move or whatever, with kids, totally different story. But for me, I had braces and headgear as a teenager, and then my teeth still weren't straight. They actually wanted to pull my permanent teeth. And my parents said no. And thankfully, my parents are both dentists as well, super brilliant. And my mom was like, I don't really know why we said no. We just didn't want you to do it. We just said, do the best you can with what you've got.
It's a gut feeling.
So thankful.
Gut
oh my
feeling.
gosh. Especially being where I'm at now. And so in dental school, they weren't straight. So I went to the residency, one of the residents there, and I was like, hey, I really love to have straight teeth. I'm a main dentist. Again, I don't know anything about anything. I'm not the Kalli Hale that I am now. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. But your mouth is too small. So we need to do what they call IPR, which is interproximal reduction, where they sand in between your teeth. Basically, they make the tooth a little bit narrower so that they can put it in place. Okay, well, I didn't know anything. They did it everywhere. They did it upper and lower, all over here.
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah. Oh, it's very common. And it's actually very common in Invisalign. So you got to be careful, like with the plan, and really trust your provider. There are times where it makes sense. Like if you have a black triangle, it's more like a cosmetic thing, not like we're going to actually make everything smaller. So just asterisk there. But anyways, I let him do it and my teeth were straight and I moved on with life, but my teeth were extremely narrow. My jaws were very, very narrow. And so after many years of giving people these big, beautiful smiles and the kids, I was like, it's my turn. But I really needed a tongue tie release. I really needed. I was grade 4 tip to end, could not stick my tongue out of my mouth my whole adult life. I used to have terrible neck tension. I mean, dentistry's kind of backbreaking anyway, but I would once or twice a year, my neck would go out to where I'd have to cancel patients, go to the chiropractor, get fixed. It was very, very painful. That has never happened since I got my frenectomy done, but I had to do some expansion in order to even do the tongue tie release, because if your palate's not wide enough, where's your tongue going to go? And I certainly didn't want to make my sleep any worse. So anyways, I had just had a longer journey and got the frenectomy done. It was the best thing I ever did for my neck. And it's amazing how my tongue will naturally rest at the roof of my mouth. And I never did that before. It just couldn't. Like it just just fat down there stuck to the bottom.
Yeah.
So
that's fascinating. Yeah. So what are some of the long-term effects for catching this early versus not catching it early? What happens if a child is breathing improperly? What are the effects into their adult life? We talked a little bit about it, about, teeth not staying straight, that Band-Aid solution. And then for instance, like my jaw, like having to use that muscle there. What are some of the other effects?
I would say long-term health issues that we're really noticing is hypertension. So, I mean, high blood pressure is the silent killer. We all talk about it. I'm like, sleep apnea is the silent killer because people don't know they have it. But high blood pressure is really, really common when you stop breathing at night. I mean, your whole cardiovascular system, everything's on fire, inflammation. Your body needs oxygen. Like there's not an organ that does not need to be oxygenated. And so you've got to be careful about this. So when I'm thinking, okay, what happens? Because I feel an incredible burden to make sure that a patient that I'm treating or doing a consult for understands the need right then and there in the chair. Because I've got this small window of time with you to tell you that there is something going on with your child that I know that I can fix. It's expensive, all the things, but I feel this incredible burden to make sure that if you don't do it, whether it's with me or somebody else, there are consequences for that. So when I'm looking at this little boy going, you're going to be on lisinopril, or you're going to have a heart attack, you could have cardiovascular disease. Like actually your brain health going into aging is going to be poorer if somebody leaves your jaw in this size. So that's really truly how serious it is. Now I never treatment plan out of fear. I'm not like, your kid's going to have a heart attack if you don't let me help them. Like never. You don't know me if that's what you think I would do. But in the back of my mind, I know how these jaws age. Like I treat adults with jaws that look exactly like they did when they were 10 or 12. And it's like, I don't want that for my children. And if I don't want that for my children, I wouldn't want it for my patients either. So it's incredibly important to just know that sleep apnea, obstructive sleep apnea, is a progressive disease. You might be mild right now. It could get worse as you get older. And your heart and your brain are the most taxed organ when you stop breathing. It is a plethora of adrenaline and keep you alive and gasp for air, as dramatic as it sounds. It's truly true. And whatever we can do to prevent that from ever being an issue for children is why we built Toothpillow and why I still do what I do every day, chairside, to help these kids. Because I don't want them to be the 70-year-old with hypertension and high cholesterol and cardiovascular disease. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so fascinating. So I want to go back a little bit into the reasons that create these problems in the first place. You talked about food. What are some of the other common reasons? I
mean, ultimately, we cannot contribute this entirely to genetics, okay? But we are many generations in, I think we're in the 8th or 9th generation in, of faces that are shrinking. basically, jaws that are too small. And so knowing that we're already predisposed basically coming out of the womb, there's things that you can do that we've talked about to try to like give your kid the best start that they can. But ultimately you have the way that you are born, and then what can you do to change the direction of the growth. So your lower jaw is going to grow in the direction that it's stimulated. Okay. So say it again. Your lower jaw is going to grow in the direction that it's stimulated. Your lower jaw will grow vertically and back like this if you're a mouth breather. So whatever we can do to make sure that you are not a mouth breather is really important. People ask me a lot about lip tape. They ask me about nasal hygiene. Those are two really important things to discuss. For children, there's a really safe lip tape. It's called myo tape. And it goes around their lips, and there's a hole in the middle, because I don't want to tell you to put duct tape on your kid's mouth. It's just not wise. You need to have some advice, okay? But that will just help approximate the lips. Obviously, myofunctional therapy. We've talked about it a few times. Like myofunctional therapy to get those lips and that tongue functioning the way it should is beautiful. And then doing whatever you can do to clean your kid's nose. Like we don't think about nasal hygiene. I mean, you think about hygiene in many other ways, but nasal hygiene, like every night you should clean your nose. Like that's not something that's really common, I would say, in the United States at all. And so we always are recommending like a safe saline nasal spray for your babies and your kids before bed, just to make sure that their nose has every like chance it can have.
Yeah, because what would be properly some of the reasons why they wouldn't have a clear nose naturally? Is it like environmental factors?
Yes,
like
it's both environmental and food.
Things like that.
Oh yeah, we can get into fragrances and like toxins. Oh, absolutely. I mean, but I feel like I deal with a lot of families that they really don't have any of that stuff in their house, and they can still have that problem.
Yeah.
So I always stem back to what kind of allergies do they have, whether it's environmental or whether it's a food sensitivity. And the food sensitivity stuff, I have personal experience with my children. I will say dairy is one of the largest culprits for congestion. If your kid is just draining and like mucus and gross and constantly having issues with that, I know it's hard to cut dairy because I did it. I am dairy free myself, but when I had to do it with my daughter, you have to do it. You at least need to do it for 30 days to start ruling out what could be causing it, because just living with congestion for years and years and years is like living with mouth breathing for years and years and years. It's going to affect the way your child's face grows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other outside root causes that we could discuss, or is it mainly that? Is it food, a little bit of genetic factors, environmental, toxins? Did we cover all of it?
You know what? That really is the majority of what it is, because I know that we can stimulate the mandible to grow in the right direction, which is what we do with the Toothpillows, by the way. They're going to hold the mandible where it needs to be. It's going to improve nasal breathing, and you're going to redirect that growth. So because of knowing that we can re-stimulate that growth in the right way, that's about all the things we can think could be causing it to be a problem in the first place.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. I want to go back to that in utero thing, because that is so fascinating to me. I am really interested in the idea of how much we as a parent influence, our children, and how children are our mirrors, and they're copying what we're doing. So maybe you're doing everything right with your child, but if you're have bad posture, if you're mouth breathing, if you're chewing the soft foods and you don't want to eat your salads and all that stuff, that is going to influence what they want to do.
Oh, 100%.
Especially in those young years.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
And I'm really curious about how your movement affects while you're pregnant as well. Are you sitting up straight, leaning forward rather than, that's a really big problem actually with pregnant women.
Yes,
is
posture.
Leaning back and doing this, which is actually terrible for having baby in the optimal position, let alone how the baby's developing. I haven't even considered that.
Yeah.
But my close friend Corey has an awesome podcast called The Village Sessions, and they talk a lot about the family structure and how we are influencing our child in so many more ways energetically than we realize. And I'm really fascinated by that too. And I think it all kind of ties together.
It's beautiful. Absolutely.
Yeah. And Toothpillow is such a great support to have, like through this process of learning how to optimize your family life and support your family structure. And you will feel so supported in Toothpillow. Absolutely. And what's really cool is that you also include this like myofunctional therapy support with it to create that longer lasting effect.
I mean, we just couldn't do it without it. I mean, when we all sat down and we had, late night Zoom calls for a very, very long time, and building the company and what is going to be the ideal package for these families. You can't do all that we want to do with breathing and musculature if you don't find the best myofunctional therapist on the globe to work with you. And we knew that we needed them because there's going to be families that have so much other stuff going on. I mean, honestly, it's heartbreaking when I'm reading the submissions. I mean, I would have moments where I'll message the team and say, guys, this is why we're doing this. This family lives in the middle of nowhere. There are no airway dentists, nobody that's going to be able to support them with anything. And their child is on 4 medications that were never even designed for being under 18 years old. Like absolutely wild and so much hurt. And then I look at a face that I know that we can influence and fix. It's like, this is why I'm here. This is what I was supposed to do. So when it comes to, I want to talk a little bit about the pregnant mom. There are absolutely insane stats of how high sleep apnea is in pregnancy. Okay. And which really shouldn't surprise us that much, because if we know that as a population, we are plagued with obstructive sleep apnea already, like if you have it, whether you know it or not, before you're pregnant, it's going to be so much worse when you're pregnant, because the bigger you get, the more weight on your belly, the more weight on your chest, like all of it's going to be hard. Your breathing is hard. And so knowing that, we see incredible complications in pregnancy and delivery when they have obstructive sleep apnea. Like the risk of hysterectomy is higher, pulmonary embolism, like things that you never want to have be a problem if your breathing is not correct before. So I screen a lot of pregnant women in the practice. Like I will send them home with a sleep study way before they're showing. Like I want to see you as early as possible so we can start having these conversations. Because if I find it before you can blame the baby weight on it, that I know that the baby's going to be healthier and develop better if I can put the mom into an appliance that's going to help them breathe at night. And the ones that I have treated that have already had, previous pregnancies and babies have told me I've never slept this good pregnant at 7, 8, 9 months.
Wow.
Like,
so what are these appliances for adults that you're talking about? Because is Toothpillow coming out with an adult appliance?
So we are going to have a really exciting announcement with adults in the kind of the orthodontic realm. What I am talking about is a traditional, what they call we'll call it a snore guard, something that your dentist can make you that is like a retainer, but it gently holds your jaw forward. These are incredible, very cost-effective solutions for the world. If you don't want to CPAP and you're snoring at night, we want to make sure that your jaw is forward and your tongue is not blocking the back of your throat. The nice thing is I have one that I can kind of mold and make chair side for pregnant women so that the cost is even better for them, because it might not be something they need forever. They might just need it during pregnancy. So I don't want them spending thousands of dollars on this like permanent retainer thing that we make for patients when I can make them something chair side. And so that's what I teach doctors to do. I'm like, have these in stock when you see a pregnant woman or you have a patient that you're really worried about and you need to be able to make something for them that night because their oxygen levels drop into the 70s or 80s. It's a great solution. So basically it looks like a retainer that kind of holds their jaw forward and will allow them to breathe better and not have the weight of the baby and just their underdeveloped jaws that they probably already have affect them while they're sleeping.
Yeah, because the reality is if they breathed properly when they were younger, they probably wouldn't be having this breathing problem as an adult. Although I do know some people who clearly were nasal breathers when they were young and had proper tongue posture. You can just see it as they develop, but they do now have some breathing issues. And so how does that happen?
Yeah, well, I think it can really go missed or undiagnosed if you naturally are just wide enough to have all your teeth fit. And you didn't need braces, like because everything came in straight. It doesn't mean that the actual anatomy, like it doesn't mean that the upper jaw is actually wide enough. I see a lot of patients that have all their teeth, even their wisdom teeth, which means they developed great in an anterior posterior dimension. It's longer there, but it wasn't wide enough, which means their nasal passages didn't develop enough. So even on the straightest, most beautiful smile, you don't really know until you get in there and start measuring and like looking at it up close.
And how does the Toothpillow or these appliances, these guidance appliances, how does it affect the child's habits, natural habits, without having to do much effort into as they get older? Does it naturally shape their habits, or what exactly is it doing?
Yeah, it changes the way their muscles work. And so it has two main functions. What I really want people to take away is the guidance appliances do two main things. They redirect breathing and they redirect musculature. So as you're growing and developing, instead of growing into your dysfunction, we can guide that growth into a proper alignment. And when your tongue can naturally sit at the roof of your mouth because the guidance appliance has stimulated that and it's resting higher as your arches have widened, you're naturally going to function better. Like you're not going to lose this if you go back to sucking your thumb or you're got a pacifier, you put some other orthodontic device in your mouth, like yes, you could undo that while you're still growing. But if you've got a tooth pillow in and it's stimulating it in the right direction, you're going to keep those changes forever. I mean, the kids that graduate out of a tooth pillow in my private practice with perfectly straight teeth and they're all erupted never see a retainer. They never see anything. They just go on with their life.
That is so amazing.
Like, what an idea.
Like the epidemic of how many kids need braces, and then you just have to wear a retainer for the rest of your life, which is like super irritating and not fun.
Of course it is. And we blame you guys. That's where dentistry just like, we have gotten away with this for so long because we're like, okay, if you don't wear your retainer, they're going to shift and it's not my fault. And like, I guess in their defense, since they were never taught the muscle part of it, they don't know anything else to do besides tell you that. But all of us are over here going like, actually, if you had a tooth filler, or actually, if you had your muscles and your tongue tie addressed, like you'd be a nasal breathing, your tongue would be up and it would hold. So that's why I feel like I have been successful in not being married to a retainer, even doing mine later in life, which my patients are gonna be like, what do you mean? You make me wear mine. And it's like, I've been testing this on myself because I got my tongue tie fixed and because my tongue fits in the roof of my mouth, it's holding the space that I've created because my tongue can now fit up there and it's holding that. So far so good.
So interesting. So can you talk a little bit more on some of these other Band-Aid supports? You mentioned mouth tape and nasal strip. Oh no, you didn't mention nasal strips, but you said the nasal cleaning.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on nasal strips?
I love the nasal strips. I'm a huge fan of intake breathing and they didn't pay me to say that. I'm a huge fan. I work out in mine. I love weightlifting and cardio, and I will wear that when I'm in the gym because the more oxygen I can get in my nose while I'm exercising, like the more effective my recovery is going to be. But for sleeping, it's revolutionary for your nasal breathing, especially if you have a deviated septum or you just naturally have smaller nasal passages. Like it is critical. And those are very inexpensive. You can get it delivered like same day in Texas and you are going to sleep better than you have in ages with that. So any sort of dilation, nasal dilation and you can just like gently do this and take a breath in your nose and see if you notice a difference with and without. Like just general, do you get more air in when you do that? It's called a Cottle test. And if that's the case, then get one of those and wear it at night and start experimenting with what it's like to be able to breathe well through your nose. I have kind of a funny story. I don't think my husband would mind me sharing this, but I got him because I wanted him to wear it as well. And he put it on and he was like, we were sitting in bed and he was just like, I can't handle this much oxygen. I was like, well, you need to. Like, what do you mean? And then he actually like went to one smaller size just to have it not feel like
wow.
Crazy.
He just wasn't
he
used to it.
sleeps so much better with it. Yeah. No, he's just like, this is a lot. I think it was kind of an interesting nervous system thing to me that you were just like, all of a sudden you could breathe in that much air and it just felt like a lot.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I know it's something like breathing. We just don't think about. We're like, oh, we all breathe. This is how we stay alive. But it is literally the first thing you absolutely need to be alive.
I know.
So to be able to breathe properly is something that is so important that why is this not part of the like check mark, the list of overall health and wellness?
Oh, I'm so glad you said that.
Yourself,
yes.
You know?
Yeah. And it should be. And one of the things that I've fantasized about at the state level, at our Congress and whatever is, you know, we're doing vision screenings in school, which is very important. I'm not here to bash that. We're doing scoliosis screening in school, which is a little interesting. I feel like peds could probably handle that or something, but we are not screening for sleep disorder breathing. And
which would affect school and
it affects every single day.
School.
Every single day. Yeah. The teachers that follow me and the teachers in our community that know their student will be a better learner if they come see me or they go to Toothpillow, they're just the biggest advocates because they're the ones dealing with the kids all day, like falling asleep in class. Usually they have to fall asleep and snore very loudly for people to clue in to like, I should tell the mom like, hey, did you know he snores? You know, because like we all have a lot going on or whatever, but the teachers have to know. And then my biggest plea is before any child is ever put on mood altering medications for ADHD or ADD, that they have a sleep study first.
That's really good advice. I love that. That's something that nobody's talking about.
Nobody's talking about it. And the misdiagnosis rate of that is 50%.
Wow. It's so interesting you mentioned snoring. It's just so part of our society, like cartoons and even little toys,
yes.
Little toys that snore. Like this is how it's supposed to be.
Like, yeah.
Like this is normal. This is good. Like, you know, we snore.
Very
little
common.
baby dolls that snore. What?
I know, Ellen. It's just
crazy.
like when you think about it, it doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't.
But we know that we grow into our dysfunction. And like as a society, if everybody's snoring, they're like, oh, let's just make a cute little baby that snores.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. It's not cute.
That's just our society too, just feeding into the convenience. And we just get so used to it that not many people are taking a step back and like looking at the bigger picture, thinking outside the box, having a victor mindset about life, not a victim mindset that this is happening. This is just what's happening. There's nothing I can do about it or change about it. So back to these Band-Aid supports. What about chin straps or CPAP machines or jaw strengthening gadgets?
Oh, yeah. I thought that one might come up. Yeah. Well, let's start with the jaw strengthening gadget. So I have a fine line between working your muscles really hard as kids when you're still growing and it's all very appropriate because your bones are changing, like you are growing. I now have a different viewpoint on those jazzercise things that you can buy because I have some friends and family that are using them and feeling like they're getting good results and it's not hurting their jaw. I waffled into my old like regular dentist brain when I first saw those come out and people were selling them and talking about it because I post braces the first time had TMJ. Took my braces off. I clicked on this side ever since then because they had retracted me so much. I was in headgear. It was miserable. And I was always told there's nothing you can do about it. And so I was always very careful with eating anything tough after that because it would really hurt my jaw and it would click and I would get tired and all of that stuff. So I look at that going, if you haven't had expansion and you haven't like fixed your jaw shape and all of that, then those things are probably going to do a little damage because where you're going to put the pressure is going to not be ideal. Like if your teeth are tipped in like mine were and very, very narrow, then it's going to irritate your jaw. And I don't want you to have any long-term issues from that. But once you've expanded and stuff, they're actually okay. And they actually do really help you. But I was always taught like, don't chew gum. I have a totally different view on gum now. I want my kids chewing gum all the time. Like anything I can do to just get them to continue to stimulate. Healthy, sugar-free, of course.
Yeah, just any kind of healthy sugar-free gum.
Yeah, any healthy or sugar-free gum. I don't want any candy or sugar in there.
Like the spry gum that's like...
we actually give the xylitol gum and spry gum in our Toothpillow boxes. I think this is really fun.
I think all the time. Just chew it all the time.
Oh my gosh, if they want it, yes. Not only, it's good for cavity prevention too, just because it stimulates salivary flow. So if you can't brush your teeth after a meal, which like what kid at school is brushing their teeth in between meals?
Your teeth do feel cleaner
100%. Yeah, because you're inevitably brushing them with the gum kind of as your saliva. So I love that kind of stuff. I just would say be careful if you haven't had, TMJ treatment, if you have had TMJ treatment or you have narrow arches.
And chin straps or CPAP machines.
Chin strap and CPAP. So as an adult provider in obstructive sleep apnea, I have seen horrific sleep studies. I'm not anti-CPAP. The public is anti-CPAP. I mean, you want a CPAP? I don't want a CPAP. Like, would you want these? No, never.
Heck no.
Exactly.
I want to sleep with a big machine on my
nobody
face?
Does. Nobody is like, oh, I can't wait. Now I will
can't
tell
wait
you.
to go to bed with my CPAP.
The people that have suffered for a whole long lot of years that like their CPAP, I'm like, great. I mean, truly, I'm not here to be like, you got to get off your CPAP. No, it's like literally delivering oxygen to you. And if you can't afford to do expansion treatment or maybe you don't qualify, maybe you have dentures, like if you don't have teeth anymore, like there's absolutely like a place for CPAPs in the world. I just tend to see the patients that it's under their bed every night and their heart attack risk is super freaking high because they stop breathing 50 times an hour and they're not wearing the life-saving device that's under their bed. So it's not doing them anything. And that is where traditional oral appliances come in place that the dentist needs to make you custom that can help you. So I'm not anti-CPAP. The chin strap is to help keep the jaw closed. Because again, if you have underdeveloped jaws and it wasn't all fixed when you were little, your tongue doesn't have room. So you're going to mouth breathe. And when you have a CPAP on, if you have the CPAP on your nose and your mouth opens, all the air comes out. Yeah. So they have to give you all these additions.
Oh my heck. This is
know.
why we need to fix this and solve this in the early years. So we don't have to deal with this nonsense. Like it's actually crazy.
Yeah.
Kind of feels like we're in a Black Mirror episode a little bit. Like imagine everybody with their chin straps and their CPAPs and like
because we didn't
eating our soft,
kids.
ultra processed foods and not realizing that we're like causing our own doom.
Yes. And that's why I get so angry and like literally fired up. It's like, what do you get fired up about on social media is when dentists try to say we shouldn't be treating early. There is a whole slew of people, keyboard warriors hiding behind their computer saying we should not be treating a 3-year-old, that you're taking advantage of the family.
Are they maybe thinking like that's like because you shouldn't be treating about the teeth?
Yeah,
because
of
they're
course,
only thinking
wrong.
about the
Of course.
teeth.
Yeah,
they're
of
not
course.
thinking
They're
about
completely
the
wrong in the
jaw.
entire thing.
Yeah, I
They
think
think we're doing
looking
it
at
because we're
this-
greedy. I got told I was greedy once.
Wow.
In a room full of 1,000 dentists, I got up to praise this myofunctional therapist because she did a fabulous job. Her name's Nicole Goldfarb. She did a beautiful presentation to a whole bunch of people that couldn't really appreciate her. Okay. And this other guy got up and just said, hey, I just feel like the previous person up here and what we're talking about here, they're very greedy.
Oh my goodness.
And it was one of those moments for me where you just had to feel sorry for somebody, because not only do they not understand the treatment, they don't understand the consequences of them telling people to wait. And that's the criminal part, in my opinion, is you're telling a family to wait, and that child's going to grow up very unhealthy.
Well, because what they know to do is not going to solve a problem when their 3 braces are not going to solve the problem. They're not realizing that there's this whole other world out there that will solve a problem to prevent the need for braces.
And I also think if you've been doing it wrong for a long time, I pulled teeth at the request of an orthodontist in the beginning of my career. I have done the eternal thing that you do not do because I didn't know any better. But did that stop me from changing my entire viewpoint on this and saying, I should never do, and I've never done it since, I should never do that, because that just changed that kid permanently. There's no going back once you do that without major expenses and expansion and surgery when you're older. So nobody wants to think that they've done harm. And so they will live in this cocoon of like, there's no way I did that wrong. There's no way I was taught something wrong 25 years ago and I've been doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, it's like a self-protective mechanism that could easily happen. For sure. Can you talk about wisdom teeth?
No, I'd love to.
Yeah.
I love wisdom teeth. We should keep them. If you have enough room in your jaws for them, which goes back to doing the early treatment, then you should be able to have them. Like, they're there for a reason. I always tell patients that have them, if you can keep them clean, you can keep them. They're really hard to clean because they're way in the back. And if you're not like looking in a mirror, you can miss stuff. And if you get big cavities on them, they're very difficult to fill because of where we have to try to get back there. So ultimately, some people will choose to remove them if they continue to just get cavities on them. But I am not just extraction happy. Like, and I even before all my airway and biologic sort of movement in my career, like I was just like, well, let's just why take something out that's like perfectly fine?
Which I mean,
there.
when my husband and I grew up, and when you grew up, it was just like a standard. I don't know what it's like
Mine
today,
are gone.
but it's just it's standard. Like you just take them out. You don't
just
even
take them out.
you don't even assess if that's a necessity. And what with Toothpillow, using Toothpillow, does that prevent the need for taking them out sometimes?
Yeah. So if we can get the jaws fully formed, whether that means you're doing just Toothpillow because you started at 3 or 4 or 5, or you're going in and we're doing like expanders and all that, whatever we need to do to get the jaws fully formed should allow for you to have all of your teeth. Now, I would say with physical expanders, we can really push the envelope if you have like large teeth, like really large teeth, and we need to make sure that we have room for them, but it's never a guarantee. I just know, get the jaws fully wide and watch what happens. It's really crazy. So in the airway dentist world, there's like a few group texts of all of us that like, chat or whatever, and we will judge the success of our cases by the eruption of the wisdom teeth. We're like, look, we did it. They're coming in. And it's like, we're so nerdy about that stuff, but it's just really so important. Once the body is functioning the way it's supposed to, you can have room for them. So I wouldn't take them out unless they were doing damage, which they will do if you have underdeveloped arches. They absolutely will. I've seen where I've told people you need to get them removed because they grew in sideways. They're not going to spontaneously go straight, and they're pushing into the second molar, and it can cause the second molar to get infected. And then you lose 2 teeth instead of the 1. So you just have to have them looked at. You have to have proper imaging to see, are they going to come in straight? Like, where are they? Are they sideways?
Yeah.
Mine were totally sideways, deep in the bone, of course, because I had terrible orthodontics and very small jaws and had to come out. And the recovery was not good. And honestly, the healing post wisdom teeth removal is a completely separate hour-long podcast because you can have all sorts of jaw infection issues as you get older. So just make room for our teeth.
Yeah, like
let's
ideally,
just make room.
they're there for a reason. We're
Absolutely.
supposed to be having our wisdom teeth, but we
Yes.
just like trigger happy with taking out, kind of like trigger happy sometimes with taking out the tonsils. They don't
Yes.
do as much
Oh my
now.
gosh, yes.
Not as much
Yeah.
now as it used to be, but yeah.
Yeah, it's still really common in the Houston area. I mean, I do a lot of second opinions on like, we already have the surgery scheduled, but my friend said to come talk to you first. Like, so that's really important. If you can induce nasal breathing in a child, you can shrink their tonsils and adenoids. I did it on my 3-year-old son. I started him. They were so big. He actually got a cavity on his tooth because of his mouth breathing and his snoring, and he was too little for a tooth pillow. As soon as he turned 3, I put him in it. It took him like 6 full months to sleep with it through the night. I mean, his older siblings had one. He was so excited. He was really trying. Once we got over that hurdle and he was able to keep it in all night, They totally shrunk. They went back to normal. And like, I thought, man, his might need to come out because they were that gnarly. So it takes us back to like the function of the nose. Like if you can induce nasal breathing and humidify the air and warm the air and filter the air, the tonsils downwards are less irritated. So yeah.
We just live in such a not ideal setup for the world right now. How often do you get someone in your dental chair and you're like super pleasantly surprised, just like without Toothpillow, like it's like, oh, it's your first time seeing a patient.
So rare we take a picture.
Like, oh my god.
I do, I freak out.
Their teeth, their development, their jaw, like how often do you see that?
It's so rare. I can probably count on one hand that the number of conversations I've had like that in my entire career.
Wow.
Yeah. We had this one family that came from Africa. They moved from Africa to and they had 4 or 5 children, and I was completely enthralled. Like I couldn't believe that I saw 5 consults and none of them needed a tooth pillow.
And did you ask them like, what are you doing?
Everything. How long did you breastfeed? What did your kids eat?
Yeah, what was it?
Hard food diet, breastfed until the child didn't want to breastfeed anymore. I mean, very much longer. And just, I mean, literally you could see when these kids smiled, it was all teeth. And like I say all the time, we'll look at before and afters of our tooth pillow patients. And I'm like, I can tell a tooth pillow face from a mile away. A kid smiles that has had a tooth pillow, I can just see it. And I don't even know how to exactly pinpoint it. Of course, their smile is wider and their teeth are straight, but like there's just something in their face that you can tell a difference of. And so next time you look at a picture of a child that's been in a tooth pillow and they're standing with like a group of their friends who are, maybe at school or just random, look at the difference and you will see it.
Wow,
you will see it.
That's really inspiring.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one last question, or actually 2 questions. Is there a best or optimal sleep position that's optimal for your breathing?
Yeah, so your back is the worst if you have sleep apnea because of gravity. So if you have a nice strong tongue and you've been expanded properly, you can sleep in any position that you want to, but your back, as far as gravity goes, is going to be the worst for sleep apnea. We get a lot of positional data on sleep studies. So they'll say when they're on their right side, they're breathing great and they don't stop breathing. When they're on the left, whatever. A lot of that has to do with like, do you have a right side deviated septum or left? Like what side of your nose do you breathe well? So yeah, back is worst. I will say people that have severe obstructive sleep apnea tend to be stomach sleepers, whether they know they have sleep apnea or not. And they just get better air like in that position. So naturally they will revert to their belly.
Yeah, I definitely feel my best sleeping on my side.
Me too.
Like
I'm a sleeper too.
Naturally. Yeah. All right, is there something important that we haven't covered yet? Are there any other missing components to this in your mind as we close out?
I just think something I would really like to press for moms is to get second opinions and third opinions in orthodontic care before you do anything. And if you were ever recommended to pull permanent teeth for the sake of straight teeth, run and do your research because you can never undo that. And so you need to be extremely well informed before somebody does something to your child that they might have to undo as an adult.
Wow. Cool. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all the wisdom that you share and the passion that you have. It is incredibly inspiring. I feel so lucky I get to meet people like you all the time and just learn so much from you. And you're definitely helping so many children. It is so amazing. And I'm just so thankful for all that you do.
I appreciate it so much, Ellen. It's been an honor to fly down here and get to know you.
Yes. And where can people get their tooth pillow? Like how
you go to toothpillow.com. You can follow us on social media. Toothpillow_official is our tooth pillow page. My professional page is the Airway-Centered Dentist, all spelled out. And you can go to toothpillow.com and click Is My Child a Candidate?
Yes.
So we can review and help you.
I'll put a link in the show notes for you guys. Thank you so much. Okay, bye. If you're enjoying these thought-provoking conversations that challenge what you think you know, please do me a huge favor right now and hit the subscribe button. The more subscribers we have, the more amazing guests we can bring on to help reignite your curiosity, expand your perspective, and upgrade your life. Thanks so much.